Let's give it a start. Hello, everyone out there in the world. A very warm welcome from my side to our webinar on climate adaptation. My name is Thomas Ilka. I'm the Regional Director of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation for the European Dialogue, situated in Brussels. The Friedrich Naumann Foundation is a political foundation which is active in over 60 countries and advocates for the social market economy, open societies, rule of law, and human rights. And in that respect, of course, climate change and the politics and policies of climate change are at our very heart. And today we are happy to partner with one of our partners, the German Insurance Association, which has a lot to say on the issue, notably with respect to sustainable risk prevention, of course. So welcome again from my side to a lot of input and a lot of political discussion over the next 90 minutes. And without further ado, I will hand over to my colleague from the German Insurance Association, Lenka de Mauro.
Hello, good afternoon to everybody. Also from my side, a very warm welcome to our webinar. I have to say it is the first for me as a host. So I am very much looking forward to our discussion, and I actually have to say I'm very happy about this format as well, since it allows us to include a lot of also speakers, but audience from all over Europe. So first, a very few words on who we are. So the GDV, the German Insurance Association, is the Federation of Private Insurers and Reinsurers in Germany. We represent about 460 companies who offer comprehensive coverage and retirement provision to private households, trade, industry, and public institutions. I head the Brussels office of the GDV since February last year. Now, by way of introduction, I want to be very brief because we have very interesting speakers and I want to allow them the most possible space for the discussion. So, why this event, why now, and with the Friedrich Naumann Foundation? There are several reasons. First of all, climate adaptation is the integral part of the Green New Deal of the European Commission, which is the, let's say, one of the, maybe the defining policy of the current Commission. The Commission is planning a climate adaptation strategy later this year, on which a consultation has been also published recently. I'm sure Elena from the Commission will say one or two words on this later. Now, for us, as well, the climate adaptation as a topic has been relevant for many years, with increasing tendency as the extreme weather events occur more and more often, and with that the damage to public budget and to private households as well. Considering the enormous efforts and financial means that are now necessary to revive the European economy after the current crisis, it is clear that we need very effective and well thought and balanced action to address the necessities of climate adaptation. So what shall be done by whom? What is the role of citizens? What is the role of the private sector, insurance, municipalities, states, the EU? There is a myriad of questions which we are not going to be able to address all, but we will try to tackle a few. Now, before I introduce the first two speakers who will give the presentations at the beginning of our today's webinar, I would like to make a few housekeeping notes. So, as I said, we are going to have two presentations now by my colleague Oliver Hauner and by Jan Rasmussen from Copenhagen, which will be followed by a short Q&A, which I will moderate. I would like to ask you, all of you, to type in questions in the F&A window, which is the Q&A, to be asked in this Q&A session to Jan and Oliver. If you like, please give in also indicate your institutions. And you can vote these questions. There is a sign, thumb up sign, which if you click on it, the question gets a vote, and the most voted questions have the best chance to be asked. We prefer written questions since we have quite few time. So I very much encourage you to, as the speakers give their presentations and the questions pop up in your mind, to type them in, and I'll take them then up. And please mute your micros, but I think, well, this is also going to be done by us, so there is not too much background noise. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first speaker, Oliver Hauner. Oliver is a trained lawyer with over 30 years of work experience in insurance. Before joining GDV in 2004, he worked for a leading German insurance group. Since 2010, he has been active as GDV's head of property insurance engineering, loss prevention and statistics. There he is responsible for topics like smart home, IoT, cybersecurity, climate change, NatCat insurance, sustainability, ESG. And this includes also initiation and support of scientific projects, for example, with the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, the Technical University of Berlin, and the German Weather Service. Oliver will outline in his short presentation how climate adaptation can be conducted through sustainable risk prevention from the perspective of insurers. So Oliver, please, the floor is yours.
So Lenka, thank you very much. I hope the first slide is on screen.
It is.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. So very warm welcome from my side. Good afternoon to everyone online. Yeah, climate adaptation via sustainable risk prevention. We have 15 minutes just for a few slides, a short introduction into a broad spectrum of ideas and a field of adaptation that is very important for our future as a society in Europe. So what we are currently dealing with, we are dealing with the fact that we have to adapt to more extreme weather events. And to give you an idea how this will develop in the future, these are so-called heat stripes. It's no barcode. Actually, it looks like one, but it isn't. These are the average temperatures in Germany between 1881 and 2017. And the blue stripe is for a cold year, and a red stripe or a darker stripe is for a warm year. And you can see how things developed over time. And yeah, the hot years have significantly increased in recent years, and we have to adapt to this situation, to this development in the future, because we don't think that we will go back to the blue stripes in the near future. A short look back at 2018. The question, was this a year of drought or a year of rainfall? In Germany, we had a very hot summer, and I remember that in most parts of Europe, we had this fine weather, but with less rain than in average years. It was very dry, and you see this picture here. This is what it looked like on many agricultural areas in Germany. So was it a year of drought or was it a year of heavy rainfall? Actually, it was a year of heavy rain, because what we measured by the German Weather Service, the radar they used, the weather radar, was that we had the highest number of heavy rain events in the timescale that we did take a look at. It was 2001 to 2018. So in 2001, we started with 281 heavy rain events, and in 2018, we had 1,349. And this is nothing that we would not expect, because the drought and the heavy rainfall are two sides, two parts of the same coin. If you have extreme weather events, you have extremes to one side, that is the drought, and the other side, that is the rainfall. So 2018, was the best example for this. And now some starting points for a climate adapted city. what do we have to expect when we analyze the losses? What we did here was we did take a look at the losses from 2002 to 2017, and the peril was heavy rain. And you can see this is an as-if analyzing system that we had 1.3 million losses to residential buildings in Germany with 6.7 billion euros of claims volume. 5,300 euros was the average loss, and the highest loss was around 700,000 euros. So this is what we have to deal on the loss side. And I think what we have to do, what is our goal is we have to find ways to minimize the losses, to make buildings, to make cities less vulnerable to heavy rain. This is a major goal for adapting to climate change. And this is so important when you keep into account that we have heavy rains nearly all over Germany. And we expect this picture can be broadened to Europe as well. What happens here? What can you see on those both pictures here? On the left side, you see dark spots, and these dark spots are nearly on every place in Germany. These are the heavy rain events, and there is no hotspot of heavy rain events. There are hotspots of longer duration rain events on the right side. This is events you would expect in mountainous regions and so on. But heavy rain events can occur everywhere, and there is no place to hide from them. So every city, every municipality, every federal region has to adapt to heavy rain and take the losses into consideration. But this is the goal. We haven't achieved this yet, and give you a few examples of what we have to do in the future. Find the difference, part one. On the left side, you see two pictures from the MRT entrances in Singapore. And on the right side, this is the entrance to a station to the Berlin Underground near our association. On the left side, you can see that even if there is a roof above the MRT entrance, there are steps or a little ramp going up to an underground station. This is because of the heavy rain events you have there. So the rain is hindered by these ramps and by the stairs to just flow into the MRT. And on the right side, you can see in Berlin, it rains, and there are there's a little bit protection at the beginning of the entrance to the underground where water can flow in. But actually, if we had heavy rain events in Berlin and the underground stations were heavily flooded in part, and this is one major goal we have to adapt. We have to take into account that even in Central Europe, heavy rain events are quite common. Second, find the difference. This is how we build buildings in Germany. Mostly on the right side with filler necks for buildings. These are just windows underground to the basements, but there is no real protection against water that is on the surface after a heavy rain event. And what you could expect here is that every house is flooded if there is no special protection on the window there. So you see just every heavy rain event with a few centimeters of rain on the ground has floodings as a result. On the left side, you can see someone who put some bricks up front of his window, and you can see the line, a dark line where the water was standing after a heavy rain event. So he was kept dry for, let's say, most of the heavy rain events, but on larger events, the water would sweep over the bricks and flood the basement as well. So we have to rethink what we are doing when we are dealing with windows, with basements, and so on. Third picture, find the difference. On the left side, this is a church after a hailstorm, and on the right side, there's a thermal insulated facade after an hailstorm. What you can see on the left side is that the facade actually is unharmed. The window is broken, the window is shattered. Okay, that's a loss due to hail you would expect. But on the right side, you can see that the hail has penetrated the facade, and the facade is damaged up to a point where you can't repair it. You have to tear down the complete insulation, rebuild the facade. You have major losses there on common buildings. So we have to rethink what we do, even if we try to adapt to climate change here. The thermal insulated facade was installed because we wanted to save, for example, heating oil or gas. We want to keep the heat in the house to be environmental friendly. But we forgot that we increase the vulnerability of the building in the event of a hailstorm. So this is a process where we have to readapt to the events, to the perils we will see in the future. So a few words to insurance in Germany. You can see we have a risk-based pricing, NatCat insurance in Germany with different insurance penetrations all over our federal countries. We have normally a bundle of perils that we insure, including earthquake, including flood, including snow pressure, avalanches, and so on, and heavy rain. And this is quite common in Germany. It's a private insurance, and it works quite well. We often hear that we would maybe do some cherry picking because private insurers don't like high risks. But to give you here a short introduction to our statistics service, on the left side you can see how many addresses, how many houses we have in Germany. That's 21.73 million. And you see how the different risks are spread through these different addresses, through these different houses. You can see the GK1, that's the light pink color. That's the area where we have the lowest flood risks, and the darkest one with the highest flood risk. And on the right side, the right ring, that's 7.1 million insurance contracts, policies we have there. And you can see the distribution of the risk we have on the left side is mirrored in the distribution of the insurance policies we have in Germany. So there is actually no cherry picking. But to be honest, high risk can only be insured if there is prevention, because it's risk-based pricing, and prevention is the key to insure higher risks. So to sum it up a little bit, our building stock, as you could see in the pictures, is not very well prepared to our extreme weather event conditions. We have to take a look at the vulnerability of materials to the vulnerability of buildings. We have to take a look at the construction methods and how we do renovation on the buildings. We have previously unknown and new vulnerabilities, as you could see in the example with the hail event. What we should do is we have to give the natural hazards more priority in planning law and the building codes. So what we would suggest is that we especially adapt the building codes to the climate events that we will see in the future. And especially in Germany, we have the problem that actually all what has to be done when you want to want to build a house, that is an administrative discretionary decision by the legal authorities. But you can only decide if you have experience. If there is a lack of experience, there is no decision that is well suited for climate change, for extreme weather events. So what we are up to is that we have to adapt the building codes to have hard facts, what adaptation to extreme weather events, what adaptation to climate change really means. And last word, what we would like to see all over Europe especially in Germany, is an easily understandable information portal for nut-cut hazards, so that each and everyone has easy access to information how he is endangered by natural hazards and what he or she can do to adapt to these situations. That's my 50 minutes. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Oliver. Thank you very much. Before we start a round of questions, I would like now to present our second speaker, who will give us another practical, even more practical and very concrete example from Copenhagen, Jan Rasmussen. Jan is an environmental engineer. He is an outspoken expert in the field of water, environment, climate change adaptation projects. He has held several positions at the city of Copenhagen, including at the Center for Environment, at the Center for Parks and Nature, and is currently head of project for the Copenhagen Climate Change Adaptation Plan. Jan has agreed to give us an insight into his current work, and I'm very curious to hear what challenges and experience have been collected in course of this project. So Jan, the virtual floor is yours. I hope you can, yes, now we see you.
I try to find my presentation. So, I think it come up now.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Climate adaptation in Copenhagen is very much about the challenge for exceeding rainwater, downpours, and cloudbursts, and also rising sea level. In Copenhagen, we expect to receive up to 30% more rain in the coming 100 years, and this will give us a big challenge about how to handle this in our combined sewer system. How can we work with this and still be able to swim in the port of Copenhagen as we have achieved as a result of our sustainable urban drainage system in Copenhagen. The process in Copenhagen due to our climate adaptation planning is that we in 2011 the city council approved a plan all over plan where we identified the challenge for Copenhagen. Then in 2012 we prepared a cloudburst plan pointing out how to handle this big challenge about the heavy downpours. On the front page of this plan, you can see a picture from Copenhagen due to a cloudburst event in 2011, very much saying what is the challenge for Copenhagen. It is flooding from heavy downpours. This led to a comprehensive plan for the whole Copenhagen, where we divided the city into several water catchment areas and provide a separate detailed plan for each of those catchment areas, setting up what is the possibility to solve this problem and handle the water in a sustainable way. And this plan was approved by the City Council in 2015. The projects or the tools we use here. No, I have something there. The tools we mainly use to handle rainwater in Copenhagen, the adaptation tool we use is to use the existing infrastructure of the city to handle the rainwater. That means that we use the squares, the parks for handling the rainwater, the roads for dividing the water out of the city due to heavy downpours, and also to at the same time make the city more green, to make it more attractive at the same time, because when we have those downpours, it gives a lot of damage to the city, but those events only occurs maybe 1 in 5 or 10 or 20 years. In the meantime, we also want that this investment should have another benefit as making the city more green, more livable. Those 300 projects, we expect that we can construct them during the next 20 years. And the cost is around 1.6 billion euros. And they will be implemented as a backbone in the development of the city, as we have to follow the way the water runs in the city. So we have to start the implementation of our projects from downstream and then move upwards into the city. And the projects, they consist of both large and small projects. It could be infiltration along a road. It can be a big pipe where it's needed. It could be a reservoir which can contain some of this water. Some examples of the green urban spaces we use for handling rainwater is those 4 pictures here. The first one is from Tåsinge Square, the very first project in Copenhagen. In this project, we transformed the gray area in Copenhagen. There was no tree, no green at all at this square before. It was a parking place. Now we transformed it into a green area, which both serve as a climate proofing of the area, and at the same time as a more livable area for the citizens around this Tåsinge Square. The second picture is also from this area. It's called St. Kitts Quarter, where we have transformed around 75% of the former gray area into a green area, which also is able to handle the cloudbursts and fulfill our goals for cloudburst saving of Copenhagen, which means that we should, those projects we are about to implement, they should be able to handle a 100 years rain event. It's a very high goal for climate proofing the city, but it seems to work. And those 2 projects, the first one at Tåsinge Square, they already have been hit by 2 cloudbursts, which it was able to handle. The next, the lower left picture is from a park in Copenhagen, a big park we have renewed. So today it's possible to store the rainwater inside the square, inside the park, where it can climate-proof a big part of the surrounding city. And the last picture is from St. Anne Square, which is a historical place in Copenhagen. We've tried to show that we're able even to retrofit the existing historical part of the city, so it could be a part of the climate proofing of the city. So there's a lot of, besides that we can make the city climate proof, we also have those co-benefits of adaptation. We can increase the recreation value of the city, increase biodiversity, have more meeting places, improve microclimate, and all those synergy with traffic planning, and we have Copenhagen as a new architecture for the city. It gives when we are implementing those 300 projects, it will be another city to visit, because it will become much more green than Copenhagen is today. We also see this as a challenge to have an economic growth, because we try to develop those ideas. We try to export them to other cities, our ideas, the planning, or the techniques we are using when we get this knowledge of how to do this. Now, of course, there's also some social issues about when we transform the city, it gives more place for livability, for meeting places, and so on. When we started this plan, we of course looked at the business case. Was it a good idea to use a surface or is it better to use the existing grey infrastructure and to expand the sewer system? What is the best idea? And when we made those calculations, it seems that our approach by using the surface, the existing infrastructure as our parks, roads, and so, it's much cheaper than using or expanding the sewer system. It gives a surplus of 0.7 billion euros instead of using the alternative as the existing grey infrastructure. It will give a surplus of 0.5 billion euros. This, of course, led to less flooding, less damage, and hopefully we also think it will give some lower insurance costs, because after we have Copenhagen been hit by 4 or 5 cloudburst events the last 8 years, the insurance fee for the private households has risen quite a lot. So my idea is that if we take away the risk, we take also this risk away from the insurance companies. So maybe they could be able to reduce the insurance fee for the households. It also gives a higher house prices. You can discuss whatever this is a good or bad idea, but when we introduce those green areas, we can see that the house prices, they went up. And as told, the cost of this plan is about 1.6 billion euros. This is paid by the water fees. We have a system in Denmark where the utility companies, they're able to finance the water handling system to transform the parks, and so they're able to handle rainwater. Then the municipality, they have to pay for the greening of the area at the same time. But the main part of the investment is the water handling system, and this is about 140 euros a year per household. And then you can discuss if this is cheap or is expensive. I think most Copenhageners, they have experienced how it is to have their home destroyed, and I think no one will experience that once again. So we have no complaint about this cost. We have several citizen meetings, and we have no complaint about this cost. And again, my idea is if every citizens, every household, they use 140 euros, they can be much smaller and it could be a good business case if the insurance company at the same time, they reduce the fee for the households. Short about storm surges, if the seawater level is rise maybe up to 1 meter in 100 years, Copenhagen will be very vulnerable to storm surge in that time, and it will lead to a lot of damage. So we have also prepared a storm surge plan to find out how to handle this challenge. And of course, in the southern part of Copenhagen, it will be the prevention will be construction of some dikes. But in the northern dense part of the city, we will try to make the protection as a part of the development of the city. So we are about to construct a new island in northern part of Copenhagen, is this area here. It could be a residential area, and then we can be able to construct a sluice gate out here outside the port of Copenhagen to protect the inner part of Copenhagen from flooding during a storm surge. It's a huge project, but it will pay off because when we construct this, it will be done from construction soil, from Copenhagen, construction of metros and other buildings in Copenhagen, and then we sell the right to construct those buildings, and this pay for the construction of the island. In that way, it will be very cheap for the city to make this storm surge barrier. Oh, sorry. Some short about lessons learned from our perspective. It's a new way to develop the city, and it's a very multidisciplinary collaboration that is needed to make this happen inside the city and outside the city administration, of course. There's a high complexity in those projects because we use the roads, the parks, where there also is other interest in how they works. The challenge, the existing practice, if you should use a road for dividing the water out, you should also be able to use it for cars, of course, and this gives some clash about how we can construct this. So we need some new innovative solutions, and we have to rework our plan in the coming years, because also the city developed during 20 years implementation time. So we also have to rework our cloud-based plan. And of course, knowledge of hydraulic is the cornerstone of making this project. And urban space potential is, of course, something is very important for the citizens and for the politicians, because this is the really big benefit we can have out of our project, besides that we can climate-proof the city. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Jan. Well, I would. The time is almost has almost run out for our session, but I would have two questions to both of you, or to you, Jan. Listening to you and seeing how the project has developed, is it what do you feel is the bigger or the challenge, so maybe the biggest challenge altogether? Is it to have these projects done over a time that is manageable? I mean, this one you have started in 2012, you have a plan, and then it goes on, and then, however, events natural, but also societal happen that like the crisis now, then there are reprioritization of budgets and so on. So what is it more the time progress, or rather the coordination between the various players you have mentioned that is a bigger issue? Or what do you feel is in realization of those projects the biggest challenge to cope with?
The biggest challenge is this is quite new to everyone. It's new for us, and it's new to those who make road construction and park maintenance, and so they have to think in a new way to make this happen. And also the legislation is a problem. There's a lot of barriers about the legislation, how to use a road or park even, that make a barrier, both national regulations and at municipality level. There's some barriers we have to overcome to make this happen.
Maybe then, Oliver, would you like to react to some of the hints Jan has made towards insurance and how it could, what influence the measures they have taken could have on insurance? And as well, I don't want to drop the question from the Q&A. There is a question asked from Czech Republic, I think, on whether you assess the damage by hail as really so considerable that you need to rethink the building plans.
Yeah, coming back to the question in the chat, yes, it's just a matter of calculation, but calculation is not a sustainable solution. If we take a look at the end of the 19th century, where we had problems in fire insurance, we had to adapt the building codes to keep the premiums affordable for the people, for the homeowners. And this is what happens now. In Austria and Switzerland and Germany, we came to the conclusion that if we don't adapt the building codes to the perils, to the extreme events we will see in the future, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we will have problems with the affordability and insurability of not-cut perils in the future. And this is a situation we would like to get away from. And therefore, if we want to have a sustainable solution, we have to adapt the building codes, because we are now working on the buildings we have to live with in the next decades. The turnaround of a building is, let's see, 50, 60, 70 years whatsoever. So the problems we nowadays solve are not problems of our future. Everything we do, we not do now, we have to tackle in the future with higher economic costs and so on. So adapting the building codes is a sustainable solution in my view. And yes, if an insurer has a risk-based pricing system, he should definitely consider your adaptation actions, Jan, in Copenhagen. When you lower the risk, then you can lower the premium on a risk-based pricing system. What the insurer mostly needs is transparency on how much the risk is really lowered, especially in return periods. Yes. This is the easiest way to calculate it.
Yes, and we have a lot of cooperation with the Danish insurance companies, and as I can see, we work very much with the same approach of data and making this risk analysis, and so I think it could be a good idea to have a cooperation between municipalities, cities, and the insurance companies, because we are providing the same kind of data, and we will be very glad to share the data with you, and if you can share your data with us, because we make a lot of hydraulic modeling, and we can see, oh, this building, it will be damaged, but it's very, very valuable if you could have some insurance information about have it at all been damaged during a cloudburst. And so it's a lot of data you have that we can use in our planning system. But I think right now it's some big trouble about it, because of the new GDPR about sharing data is a really a barrier, but it could be it's a very good idea to share those data.
I think since this is I know this is an issue for the Commission as well, maybe a short reaction on this one, Oliver, from you, just on what data we can share and how this could work, maybe also what we have done already.
Yes, Elena, the granularity of the data, I think is the most important issue here. Data that goes down to the very private level. I think this is, you can't share it because of the GDPR. But a technical data on a broader level, this is data you can share. This is data you need on the technical side as well. You need how a building is constructed, for example. Is it the building made of bricks and stone? Is it a building made of wood? Does it have a basement or not? This is information you need for modeling. And what we already do is we have our NatCat report each and every year with a second part where we publish a lot of statistical information on a broader level. And as Lenka said in the introduction, we have a lot of scientific cooperations, for example, with the German Weather Service, where we bring together our knowledge for the common good. And I think this is the way to look forward, because we can't handle this situation. We can't handle climate change and the obstacles we have in front on our own. We have to team up and find solutions altogether. Yeah,
I agree on that. If we don't do anything in Copenhagen or other cities, I can see you have no customer, because you have to rebuild the houses every second year, and it's not a good business for no one. So I think there's really a background for a good cooperation between the insurance companies and the data and the way to how also the advising for the citizen how to make their own property climate proof.
Sure.
So I think we have provided a little bit of examples and food for thought for the second part of our webinar, and I now would like to hand over to Thomas in order to introduce our three panelists, and maybe if questions then come up which also relate to what has been said before, Jan and Oliver can jump in. So, Thomas, it's to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lenka. Here it's me again, Thomas from the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. And thanks, Jan and Oliver and Lenka, for this fascinating view into the practicalities of climate change / climate adaptation. And now I would like to join our three panelists to join me on the virtual and digital area. Where are you? Are you already on? Yes, I see Erin. Is Elena there? I see Andreas. Hello.
Hi.
You? Elena is already not unmuted. Elena, can you unmute yourself? And come in with, very good, here you are. And if you could just unmute yourself so that we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. Everything is perfect, thank you. So after this, lots of food for thought, we now go into the world of policies and politics. So from a business case, we have already seen to what we can do in the political arena. And we will do that with three distinguished guests we have. And I simply give a short introduction and then start with you, Elena, for the first question. We have on stage Elena Visnar Malinovska, Head of Unit DG Climate, European Commission. So you know all about the plans, the future plans the Commission has. You already have just launched the roadmap for the European strategy for adaptation, and I will come back on that later. But before that, I say hello to Erin McGreehan, our Fianna Fáil Councillor for Louth County Council in Ireland. So you have to cope with all the things which people in Brussels and elsewhere want to make possible in the regions. You have to deal with that, and we come back, of course, to you in the second round, the second question. And last but definitely not least, we have Andreas Glück, our Member of Parliament representing Renew Europe. You are on the Committee of the Environment, Public Health and Food Safety, and for a long time in your political career, not only in the European Parliament, on the issue, active on the issue of climate change. So if you won't mind, I would love to start with Elena from the Commission, who, as I said, has recently published the roadmap for European strategy. And Elena, I simply want to elaborate a little bit on that. We heard a lot of heavy rain, things like that, but I think there is much more to climate adaptation than only this issue. And I would love to hear, when we think about the times we are in right now, the COVID crisis, if you fear a backlash to your issue of climate adaptation, or do you think it really is fueling the climate adaptation issue? So, Elena, please, the floor is yours for the first question.
Thank you very much. I'll start by the end. I think the situation is ripe, because if you take just the COVID lessons, and what they show to us is that from the climate emergency perspective, we are just realizing in what kind of intractable position we are, and even the reductions that are being done in these past months, they will mean nothing in terms of changes, because our future is predestined by the past, by today, and how we will go in the future. Tomorrow, the Commission will adopt a major recovery plan, which is planned to be a green one, and which should spur a lot of investment in infrastructure. And we need to make sure that this recovery package actually rebuilds the economic and social fabric that has been shaken by the pandemic. And what the pandemic has shown is actually to what extent we are unprepared, to what extent we failed on risk management practices, on lack of monitoring, lack of early monitoring, warning systems, lack of transparency, international cooperation, scientific approaches in the uncertainty field, etc. So this is all what shows us how much adaptation policy as a major effort to do a better planning, to be better prepared, and to act on impact is necessary. I don't need to bring you through not too much water, but too little water, because actually what we do realize now in many parts of Europe that we will go again to a summer where agriculture will be crippled by the impact on the drought side. We have already countries signaling this difficulty, but allow me to say how we plan to go forward on the adaptation strategy. I mean, first of all, what is the very purpose and very at the heart of the adaptation policy is the notion of risk, and how you deal with that risk, and what kind of data you have around the risk. And this is, this needs to be scaled up at society-wide level. It's not just a question of an individual or of a business, or even not a state. And so far we have seen mostly in adaptation, community-led adaptation. So even businesses have been hiding behind the effort by a city or by a state, by a region, to build fences or to protect, public buildings, etc. So we need to start thinking also about the better allocation of solidarity and individual responsibility. Now, talking about the different areas we go with, of course, in the past, we have worked a lot with European funding. I have heard the word of climate proofing from Jan, and indeed that's very much the term we use, and we want to see how the European funding can actually help to deal with the existing risk, how it can avoid, creating new vulnerabilities, because in the coming years, you can imagine a lot of infrastructure will be built, and we need to make sure that the landscape does not add, to vulnerabilities. And we definitely need to see how we can transfer the residual risks. And this is where the financial sector plays such an important role. But allow me to go first by data. And indeed, what we have learned is that we need to even act in times of uncertainty, because we will always deal with worsening conditions. But data is an important, input, so that our decisions are not climate, let's say, blind. And we would need in the future much more of these customized, data and information and knowledge to come on stream. Why? It is because, for instance, under the taxonomy legislation, the companies or some businesses can opt in and can try to be taxonomy compliant. It means have green investments, but for this they would need to do climate risk assessments, and to do a good climate risk assessment you of course need to have good data. How can Europe help it? Well, we have launched in the past a lot of projects under Horizon 2020. We have the satellite communication services, Copernicus, and the top-down information is becoming more and more granular. So this is very positive. Where member states can help us further is definitely to creating some public-private partnerships. And I've heard from Oliver this idea of a portal on NatCat information. This is typically where the state can team up with private sector, with cities, and have these data solutions in place. So that's the first area where one needs to work, and it's the very foundation of any good policy. Second is very much working on what we say the knowledge gap, and here we have a major undertaking under the Horizon Europe, the research program, whereby in the coming years we would work on a few areas, important areas for societal change, be it infrastructure, be it forestry, and all that, of course, with societal engagement, so that research solutions and innovative solutions are demonstrated, are moved relatively swiftly. Next to it is, of course, what we have heard from the city of Copenhagen, but also from Oliver, is all what is, infrastructure. Because we see the infrastructure has been built with different climate in mind, and we definitely need to make sure that these precious assets are not depreciated too fast. And so for that, of course, there is a lot what member states can do, starting with the land planning and zoning decisions, with the building codes. But of course, this is also where Europe can help a lot, and we are trying to work on the concept of climate proofing for any infrastructure we will be funding in the future. It's a process, but it's an important process for anyone to be in and to actually look at it. Next to it, of course, will be finance, and we work very intensively on what we call this climate protection gap, which means that there is a lot of population or assets that are not simply covered by any sort of risk transfer mechanism, be it insurance or something else. And I think in the future, it does pose a lot of problems, and it does pose a lot of, moral hazard, charity hazard issues. And at the end of the day, it goes back to the sovereigns, often to member states, to the public coffers for bailouts and compensation. So this is not only about, finance, this is about the whole behavioral change across the whole value of risk, proper risk management. And I believe that this will be very important as soon as member states start realizing that it does have macroeconomic impact. It does have financial stability issues. And if the scale is going up with disasters, if disasters become frequent and not random, if we are not prepared, it does punch a hole in the public coffers. And of course, then there is the whole area of urban development, of urban multi-level governance, of citizens, and adaptation in cities, what we can do. We have many good examples across Europe, more concentrated in some parts of Europe than the other. But, the new adaptation policy should definitely unleash the potential of sharing all these good practices to bring Europe, let's say, somehow, to the same level of preparedness and of prevention. So what is important to realize, adaptation is a preventive policy. Adaptation is not about firefighting. Adaptation is actually about avoiding that the firefighters have to be there in the first place.
Elena,
so this is all in terms of the wide brush landscape of adaptation, and happy to reply to any questions.
Very good. Thank you so much for this deep and detailed insight. And since all politics is local, Erin, we bring in you right now, because you have to do all these things, brains in Brussels, collect and put into policy papers. So what is your take on data, on bottlenecks, on city planning? What is going on in your region with respect to climate adaptation?
Yeah, I suppose I'm also a member of the Committee of Regions, also I'm on the Renew Europe team. But yeah, here all politics is local, and every action is not taken. It's, action is initiated at national level, at EU level, but it's taken at local level. So, we at local level are we're the first responders for emergencies. We're the first responders for an awful lot of action that needs to be taken. And, I couldn't agree with Oliver or Jan any more. They were, it's about prevention. It's about reducing that risk. It's about enabling communities, enabling cities and towns to reduce their risk to climate change and for flooding. Our history has our city's histories. We built on rivers, we built along coasts for a reason, and now we're trying to mitigate against our historical decisions. So what now is, as Oliver gave an awful lot of very practical solutions. This is what we need. We need practical solutions, and it's all great and having fantastic policies, ideas, initiatives, but unless they're brought down to a local and regional level and actually initiated with buy-in from the community, then they're obsolete and they don't work. We really need, an impatient person and I want to see results. And I find that at the minute, local level, we're not seeing the benefit of these plans as yet. For instance, in Louth, we had last week, in my region, it has been announced that we had 11,000 addresses in my area are at risk of flooding. And that's 19% of addresses in my area. That's huge. It's huge risk. And now it's about mitigating and pushing forward on the work that the Floods Directive has brought us. Those huge amount of data collected in Ireland over the past 13 years, and it's huge benefits, but we need to act. And policies and everything are futile without action. So I really want to push it from an EU level right down to national and local to support the local communities to make these changes. Because if the local does not see benefit, does not see cost reduction, does not see improved quality of life, then we're not going to see a buy-in from the community. And that would be, as a local representative, and I'm sure Andreas is the same, he really, he needs the local buy-in. And we're politicians, we deal with people, we deal with policies, but unless action is taken, then it's no good. But there is a lot of things. So I'll leave it at that one and there. So definitely we need buy-in, we need action. And that's it. As an impatient politician who really strives for change, that's what we need. It's going too slow.
Thank you, Erin. Action needed. And of course, you hinted at the fact that we need a multi-level governance approach. Andreas, I think this is a good time to bring you in. As I said, you're a member of your European Parliament, but you have a long career as a regional politician as well. And I know that the issue of climate change and climate adaptation is at your heart. What I want to know from you, how is your perspective being in Brussels now and having been in Baden-Württemberg, very deeply rooted in the region on the topic, and how do you assess the issue of investment which has to be done? Is it only a burden or is it an opportunity as well? Please.
So first of all, let me say thank you. I think it is a really, really interesting discussion we have here today. Actually, I would like to start with what Erin just said. I believe that on the European level, every decision on the European level has effects on our daily lives at home. And basically, this is the reason why I wanted to go for this change from the State Parliament of Baden-Württemberg to the European level, because very often I just heard, and maybe you heard it the same way, very often people just say, oh, it comes from the European level, you can't do anything about it, you know. And this is, but this is so important that we go for good decisions on the European level, because every decision which has been taken here has like very, very concrete effects on our daily life. In the discussion, we've been talking a lot about adaptation today, but I believe when it comes to climate change, we really have to make sure that we see that there is mitigation action and adaptation action. And very often, and I think this is what Oliver said before when he was talking about the new facades on buildings, the fact that you put on a new facade, like with a very good insulation, for example, is part of the mitigation. But on the other hand, what kind of facade you put on there is part of the adaptation. So actually, mitigation and adaptation have to go hand in hand. And for example, as a medical doctor, which I am, it is very normal that first we go for prevention, which is like really, really important. But in case the prevention failed, we have to start to treat people. We have to go for the therapy. And I believe we should do the same thing when it comes to climate change. We should go for mitigation and we should go to adaptation, and both has to go hand in hand. So for example, an example from my area, the forestry office, they brought out a tree species sustainability map, so that the fact that we plant new trees is good. It is part of the mitigation because trees are very good and very important for the carbon sink, so good for the climate. But the fact that we go for a certain species of trees is part of the adaptation. So we want to crop, we want to plant trees which have a good possibility of survival, also when the climate is getting a little bit warmer. Then second thing, where I come from, and this is very specific, I live in an area which is part of the biosphere reservation Schwäbische Alb. And I pretty much live in the middle of that. It's a UNESCO biosphere reservation. It has about 85,000 hectares. And there are three areas. There is a core area, buffer zones, and transition areas. In core areas, basically, they're strictly protected. In buffer zones, it is basically it's around the core areas, and this is the areas where we can do a lot of scientific research, monitoring, training, and education, which I believe is good. And then there is a transition area. Transition area is where people live, where people work, where you find companies and whatever. And I believe this is a very smart thing, because the motto of a biosphere reservation is nature and mankind and all those interactions. It's not only there just to just to preserve nature itself. It is really there to learn sustainability in the interaction between nature and humankind, which I believe is very good. And then it comes to the question, how to do that, how to do all those things. Should we as politicians go for mandatory things, or maybe isn't it even better to go for voluntarily steps? So the biosphere reservation, which I just mentioned, only the municipalities are part of this biosphere reservations who wanted to take part. It was built up in 2008, and we had some municipalities which didn't want to take part in this. And then now, 12 years later, all the other municipalities want to join this biosphere reservation as well. Why? Because there was huge development. It has huge development when it comes to food production, for example. We have a very strong local food production market in the meantime. Or, for example, when it comes to soft tourism, we have soft tourism concepts so that people actually come to our area to take part there, which is also good for the economy. So very often, I believe if we just go that we prohibit things, that we ban things, maybe it's not a very good way, but if we go for voluntarily things, there are so many good approaches, and I really believe it can be really, really successful. So far from the area where I come from and how we try to handle the problem there.
Thank you so much, Andreas, for this picture and reminding us that we need a certain integrated approach, both with respect to nature and mankind mitigation and adaptation, in individual and state solutions, I guess. I want to go a little bit deeper into an issue which was brought up by Jan during his PowerPoint approach, and that is how to solve conflicts you have on the ground. If you implement such policies in cities or in areas, in regional areas, rural areas, I think there are sometimes conflicts between citizens, business, the authorities, what to invest, who has to invest, how to use the space you need to do rebuilding things. And maybe we again start with Elena. Do you have experiences on this? On that, is it part of the package you deal with, or do you leave that to the local authorities?
Mute. Fine. I would say that we should engage. We should engage with the local level on these issues, because in the past, let's say the habit was to say we do our European homework and you local authorities, you do your local homework. And the Chinese wall in between is called subsidiarity. That's not my understanding of subsidiarity. I think subsidiarity is a two-way, collaboration, whereby you understand a little bit the constraints of the local level and for the design of the EU policy. And we have a lot of what I would call enabling tools and toolboxes that we can open for local authorities, use. It is also, when you look at funding, often if something happens at local level, of course, they turn to national funds and then maybe to the solidarity fund. So you need to actually create some of the loops. What is important, I think, and this has to do a lot with single market, with companies, with construction, etc., is that we need to work on standardization. And standardization across the board, standardization of construction practices, construction materials, standardization of climate information, standardization of climate risk assessment. This is really important. And you have maybe seen that for the recovery plan, the idea is to go into massive renovation wave. And I think what is important is that this massive renovation wave is not a rush through simple energy efficiency facade, as Andreas was saying, but really a deeper, let's say, a renovation where you would look at, climate resilience. It means thermal comfort. Is it fit for withstanding heat waves, is the construction material, you know, from recycled construction material. I think you can tag a lot of things that also Jan called co-benefits, and that's important. I think in many of our policies we have a very, you know, very short-term and very limited view of what the benefits are. We in resilience we typically see, you know, how much better we are at withstanding certain impacts. But if you make an economic activity more resilient, this is a plus for the future, and the co-benefits definitely. So this is what we call actually the triple dividend of resilience.
Thank you. A triple dividend. We started with a double dividend and now we have a triple dividend. Erin, do you have a quadruple dividend for us? No, just kidding. What is your take on mobilizing investment, on conflict resolution, things like that in your area?
Well, my whole thing, it has to be through consultation, through education and collaboration. You have to be able to speak. You take local knowledge, or you take an EU policy, you can adapt it to with local knowledge and use your intellectual property of people. People know their area, people know, and this is where local government comes in. And I think that once people know that there is going to be a social dividend, that there is going to be a benefit, that their costs are reduced, as I said before, their costs are reduced, their quality of living is going to be improved, then there is a buy-in. You know, we have a fantastic, the Water Framework Directive, and there's an awful lot of public consultation going on in Ireland with regards to the Water Framework Directive at the minute, and it's really buying into the local community. The community are seeing what, you know, the water quality in the river is going to improve. We need the community to buy in, to take action, to sustain the improvements that the Water Framework Directive is going to achieve. So it's all about local, it's all about individual actions and to improve and to facilitate individual actions. Like, one big bugbear of mine is our waste. We have so much household waste that it's costing households a lot of money, that it's costing state a lot of money, landfill. You know, why aren't we changing to biodegradable waste? Why aren't we changing to biodegradable, at best case scenario, biodegradable packaging, and worst case recyclable packaging? This is all possible. We can, and these are, you know, companies that can make money. There is money in this. There is business. It makes economic sense to transition with our waste. It also, you know, from our consumer trends, you know, why we are price sensitive, we are quality sensitive. Why not make us educate ourselves and make us carbon sensitive? You know, I would love to see a carbon education and carbon transparency from an EU level, but brought to a local level. So when I walk into a local grocer's, I know that vegetables or that technology has a high carbon footprint. I want that carbon transparency, and I really do think that this will make those type of initiatives will make a massive impact on the local level, and then people start seeing changes, and then the larger impacts are seen at national level, and the bigger things like the, you know, flood defenses and the disruption that flood defenses and those type of things make in a local area are easier to take, because we see the positives of action. And I do think that there is an awful lot of work that can be done around climate adaptation, and I completely agree with you, Andreas. There's climate adaptation, you know, climate action and mitigation, and we really need to see that at local level, because an awful lot of people don't see, or the advantages aren't explained at a local level, and there is huge financial, health benefits to climate change. Even if all this, what I say to cynics, if all this climate change is fake, we will have better quality of life, we will have better air quality. So what? Let's move forward and forget about the silica, because it's positive. Even if it all in 10 years time we wake up and it's all fake, we live with huge positives. So it's a win-win situation. So
thank you so much, Erin. That is a very interesting take on fake news and disinformation. Maybe we have another one on this, but I want to bring Andreas in again, and your experience on both levels when it comes to how to sell it to the people.
So first of all, as what Erin and Elena said, I really do believe that subsidiarity is not a one-way road, but it's a two-way road. And it's obvious that maybe sometimes there are some different interests, and then on a two-way road, you always have to kind of pay attention that the cars don't crash into each other. So maybe this is like one of the really important things politics has to do, that we have different interests, but we get along with our different interests and we find best solutions. I believe that like one important step to do is, if we see Brussels politics, is that we really go and set the right incentives, that we go for a framework, that we as Europe go for common goals. But what I don't believe in is that politics say which is the best technology we have. I really believe if we go for a framework, but not for specific technologies, this would be really, really smart, because we have very different circumstances in all EU member states, and maybe one technical solution in one member state is very well, and maybe in another member state, it is a completely different solution. A different solution might be better. So what we have to do, our approach, and this is what I really pray pretty much every day to pretty much everybody here, we need to have a technology open approach. We have to have a market-based approach as well, such as the European, like the ETS, the European certificates for CO2. And the third thing is we need it scientifically based. We are talking about politics here. We are not talking about religion. I believe that this might be the best or that might be the best. Our approach must be scientifically based. And then in this regard, I don't really want to work with fears in politics. I know that there are especially right-wing parties, but sometimes also green parties, which kind of come with the approach, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. We're all gonna die. Besides, you vote for us, maybe we can manage, maybe we can handle it. This is not my way of doing politics. My way of doing politics, and I believe this is our liberal way of free Democrats, that we want to encourage people to do the right thing, that we say there is a problem, but we already solved a lot of problems. So let's go for a good solution here. And so I really, really believe that that we should do a lot of things, not mandatory, but voluntarily. I believe we should have common goals, but we should not go for specific technologies. And then this is what Erin said, like at the end, I mean, we are liberals. Of course, we do believe that we need education, because I believe education is just the key to a lot of things. We need education is the key for understanding. And when it comes to climate change, when it comes to the issue of mitigation and adaptation, we really need smart people, and the key for me here is education as well. So all together, we have to work all together. We have to like go for an integrated approach, and the local level is as important as the European level and all levels in between.
Thank you, Andreas, for this optimistic stance on the issue. Since we have some 7 minutes left and I have no open question in the F&A, I simply go ahead with a question of mine. We touched upon so many issues like waste, water, rain, drought, preparing buildings, things like that. Do you see some kind of a prioritization, or is this the wrong step forward to make progress? Do we need a more integrated approach which takes stock on everything which is related to climate adaptation? Tricky question, but since I'm an economist, I need to ask this one. Who's first? Elena, will you do us the favor again?
Yeah.
Andreas.
Yeah, I'm here.
Do you have an answer on this one?
Actually, I did have a problem. This is why I pointed on my earphones. I did have an acoustic problem in the middle. Just give me the middle part of the question again.
Okay, my question was, we were touching a lot of issues like waste, water, rain, drought, and others. And the question was, do you see any kind of prioritization in these fields? So would you go for water first, or what is your stance on that?
No, obviously not. Obviously not. You know, I believe that there are certain circumstances which are necessary for people, for animals, for the environment, for everything to survive. And it is just different things. You know, you can't just say, okay, I will put my focus on water and I just ignore the rest, you know. So it kind of reminds me of a barrel, you know, if you have like this barrel, and if the wood is like a different height at, you know, like if it's not straight, but if there are just several different levels, the water will just go up to the lowest piece of wood, you know. And this is actually what I really believe how we should handle the problem. We have to have an integrated approach over all levels, but also over all issues. And I mean, it does, you know, it doesn't make sense if, for example, I'm really happy that there are no firestorms, but in the next moment I have to drown because I have such heavy rainfall. So, you know, we have to see all the problems. The environment and animals and humans, we need certain we just need certain things to make sure that we can live a prosperous life. And so we should focus on, and this is the difficult part, we have to focus on different things at the same time.
Thank you. So complexity is king. Erin, your take on that?
Definitely. You can't have. We're all parts of one big thing. So if you just, it's like, you know, if you work on, you're trying to improve your own self. If you only work on your mind and not your body, then you're going to have a mismatch. So you need to work on everything, and a wave will carry. You know, positive wave will carry positivity, and there is no point on, you know, on working on just water, and you have waste, and you've no way of dealing with waste. We need to work. This is integration. It's about joining all the dots and making everything work. Like join the dots on the ground level and join the dots from every single level of government and governance. And I think you mentioned a while ago there about privatization of these things. I would be against privatization of some issues. Yes, private industry has a huge part to play, but market forces can be inequitable. And if this green transition is going to work, then we need, you know, a proper, you know, equitable distribution of the benefits and equitable distribution of the costs. So I don't think market forces aren't always, you know, preferable. We need to make some market distortions to make things equitable for all people. So definitely an integrated approach, and I don't agree with all privatization. There is need for everything, privatization and public. It's you can't have one without the other, I do think, you know. So, yeah.
Thank you. Elena, your plan is obviously touching on each and every channel of adaptation, I guess. So you're fine with what your people on the panel said, I guess.
I'm fine with what is said in terms of systemic change. We need a structural change. You cannot hit one point so that, the problem arises somewhere else. You can imagine when you go to a kinesiotherapist to treat your back, when they handle you, it may be that the pain appears somewhere else. No, we need a complex treatment. But of course, you need to start somewhere. And the issue with adaptation is indeed this interconnectedness, that many issues so much hang together. If I want to do a good policy, I need to have a good overview of where the losses were in the past, what are the hotspots, but also what are the future trends. So I cannot just base myself on statistical models for the future, for the past, but I need to look more into the future. If I want to have climate, robust climate risk assessments, I need some sort of collaboration with the public sector, which would offer the hazard maps to the private and individual citizens. I need to have very well aware citizens, because what Erin mentioned about carbon education, pardon my English, but I think this is the basis of schools. Like, what is the carbon cycle? What is the water cycle? It's really, this is something what we should learn in basic school, to understand what are the interactions and how much we actually do impact on that. I'm quite sometimes shocked that even we sophisticated adults sometimes have very basic questions on that. No label will tell you, what is what. We have to be a little bit more aware that many issues do have impact: your energy use, your shopping habits, your mobility movements, and I think it is all also about being alert as humans. It's not in silver bullets and in crystal balls, I'm sorry, and all in somebody else telling you, but it is also a lot in individual responsibility. And what I'm a little bit afraid in all these discussions is indeed the moral hazard and the charity hazard, because this is where, if you assist too much people, always when the disaster strikes or when the problem arises, you may build a behavior that doesn't work on, fall prevention at all. And I find this very dangerous in times of stranded public funds, in times of tensions arising between the poorer and the richer, etc. It's really at the end the equity issue.
Thank you so much again, Elena, and thank you all the three of you, because time has running out right now. We had a lively discussion, believe it or not. It's 15:30, and we need to finalize this webinar. Lenka is again in. Thank you so much for co-hosting this event with us together. I think we had a fascinating discussion. We had two fascinating inputs, which gave a lot of education and which made clear that we need a multi-level governance approach, which have to buy in and bring in the people from the ground, as all the politicians, as the businesses, to find common solutions and tailor-made solutions to each and every problem in which area ever. So this is this from my side. Lenka, some final remarks? No?
Right. Many thanks from my side to everybody who has participated, to the panelists and to all of our audience coming from many different countries, institutions, sectors. So thank you very much, and hopefully see you and speak to you soon. I imagine it will be this format for a while now.
Absolutely. The format and the issue will live with us. Thanks again, and have a good afternoon and good work for the future. Thanks a lot. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care. Stay healthy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.